Shalom Havarim, James Trim here. Today I want to talk to you about a Hebrew manuscript of the book of Luke that looks like it may well descend from the original Hebrew of the book of Luke. Before I get going, I need to ask you to please donate to support this work. And also, for those that don't know, my wife is chronically ill. She suffers chronic pain. She's disabled, and I'm her at-home caretaker. So you can certainly help us out with that as well when you donate. You can donate by sending donations by PayPal to donations at wnae.org or by clicking on the donate link in the video description. Also, like our videos. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Click the notification bell so you'll get notified when new videos come out. Let us know what you think in the comments and participate in the discussions in the comments. Those are all things that the YouTube algorithm looks at to decide which videos to recommend to new viewers, and we want to get recommended to new viewers. Also, you can help us out by sharing these videos on Facebook, in relevant Facebook groups, on X, formerly known as Twitter, any kind of social media in which you participate. Also, email it to your friends. Send it as a private message to your friends and so on. Okay, so let's get started. This is a version of, this is a manuscript of the four Gospels in Hebrew. I made a recent video on this version of the four Gospels. Unfortunately, it's really not the four Gospels. It's only Matthew through Luke chapter 17. Now, the scribe indicates that he was copying, in the preface, he indicates that he was copying from a manuscript of the four Gospels. Unfortunately, he quit copying at the end of Luke 17. We don't know what happened. We don't know if he died or lost interest. However, there is a colophon to the manuscript, and the colophon is at the very end of the manuscript, and the colophon indicates that this version, he called it, it was titled The Torah of Messiah, and the manuscript, according to the colophon, was hidden up in caves, and that it was brought forth by Jews who had hidden their testimonies, apparently secret believers in Yeshua as the Messiah. Okay, so this makes, of course, the manuscript very interesting, just from the very fact that it claims to have been hidden up in caves and have come from Jewish believers that had hidden their testimonies in Yeshua. So I haven't done a complete translation of the text yet. That's on my plate of things to do. And I haven't looked at every passage of the text. I've done something of an overview and looked at some passages and found some interesting things in the process that I'd like to share with you. The first is in Luke chapter 1, verse 62. In this verse, the Greek text of Luke opens with the phrase, "and they made signs to his father." Not just the Greek text. In fact, every Greek manuscript I'm aware of reads that way, but also the Latin Vulgate, the Peshitta, and in fact, every ancient version of the book of Luke I'm aware of opens with this reading, "and they made signs to his father," except for one. The old Syriac Aramaic version of Luke, which is a manuscript that we've discussed many times before. The old Syriac text is it's actually a pair of manuscripts of an old Syriac Aramaic version of the four Gospels from ancient times that served as the basis for the Peshitta Aramaic version later. The Peshitta was a revision of the old Syriac towards greater agreement with the Byzantine type of Greek text. I did a video recently on Jewish elements, Jewish Aramaic elements in the old Syriac Aramaic version of the four Gospels. One of the things that's especially interesting about this version is that it was lost anciently. It existed in ancient times, but it was lost, and then it was recovered, but not until the 19th century. when two manuscripts of it were found hidden away in old monasteries in the Middle East. Both manuscripts were missing a lot of pages, but between the two of them, we have 95% of the text of the Old Syriac. Now, it's especially significant for two reasons. One, because the version of Matthew that we have in this Hebrew manuscript has a lot of agreement with the Dutile and Münster versions, or the Dutile and Münster texts of Hebrew Matthew, which are a version of Hebrew Matthew that has, I've shown in the past, has many unique agreements against all other versions with the Old Syriac Aramaic version from the 4th century. And this is especially interesting in both cases because this Old Syriac version was lost in ancient times and would not have been available to a Hebrew translator in the Middle Ages. So a Hebrew Matthew that was, or a Hebrew Luke, either one, that was created in the Middle Ages wouldn't have unique agreements with an Old Syriac Aramaic version that had been lost and wouldn't be rediscovered until the 19th century. Okay, so the fact that our manuscript here in Luke agrees with the opening phrase in Luke 1:62, and they said to his father instead of and they made signs to his father. Now, it may seem like a minor difference, but it's especially important that it agrees with one and only one ancient version that had been lost and wasn't rediscovered until the 19th century. Okay? All right, let's look at another passage. Let's look at Luke chapter 2, verse 1. This one's especially interesting. Here, the King James Version, following the Greek, says, "And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed." Now, the word for world there in the Old Syriac Aramaic version is erah. Erah is the Aramaic cognate to the Hebrew word eretz. So erah is spelled aleph resh ayin, and then a typical Aramaic aleph on the end. And eretz is aleph resh tzadhe. This shift from tzadhe to ayin, going from Hebrew to Aramaic, is not unusual in the cognates from Hebrew to Aramaic. It's a typical consonantal shift that often happens. Okay, so erah and eretz are essentially the same word in Hebrew and in Aramaic. Okay, the word eretz can mean earth, as it is used in Daniel 2:35, land, as it's used in Daniel 9:15, or world, as it is used in Proverbs 19:4. Here, though, the meaning should be haaretz, the land. See, the word eretz, land, in Hebrew, when it's haaretz, it has the definite article ha attached to it. Haaretz, the land, is a common euphemism for the land of Israel. In fact, there's a newspaper in Israel, in modern Israel, there's a newspaper called Haaretz. It's a terribly liberal paper, but it exists. It's called Haaretz because that's a euphemism for Israel. The Peshitta, by the way, paraphrases people of his dominion. Takes out the word altogether and paraphrases the world as people of his dominion. Now, it makes much more sense here that this was a tax. This was a census of the land. Okay, and so erah here means land. Our Hebrew manuscript of Luke has kol haaretz, all the land, all haaretz. Okay. It agrees with the Old Syriac against all other versions. Now, it has in parentheses, it has another word for world in Hebrew, but that's a parenthetical alternate reading. The main text has haaretz, the land, which is the reading that corresponds with the 4th century Aramaic. Okay, then let's look at Luke chapter 2, verse 11. Here we would the angels are making a declaration of the coming of the Messiah, and they say that Messiah, the Lord, has been born. Now, I'm sure most of you know that the word that in translations, the word Lord, when we see it in a translation, it can mean Adonai or it can mean Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, Yahweh. Okay, we would expect, or it could be just Ha'adon, Adon, meaning like Sir or Master or Lord. Okay, we would expect, in the sense that you could use with just a person. Okay, this is what we would expect to see here if we were just translating back into Hebrew from, or let's even say into Hebrew if you didn't even, understand a Hebrew origin. If we were translating the Greek into Hebrew, we would translate most likely Hadon, Mashiach Hadon, Messiah, the Lord. However, in our Hebrew manuscript, we are surprised by the bold declaration of the deity of Messiah here when the angels are declaring him to be Messiah Yahweh. Messiah Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. This is interesting because the Aramaic of the Old Syriac and the Aramaic Peshitta both have in Aramaic Maryah. Maryah is the Aramaic word that is used in the Peshitta Tanakh, because the Peshitta, there's a Peshitta Tanakh and a Peshitta New Testament, a Peshitta Old Testament and a Peshitta New Testament. The Peshitta Tanakh uses the word Maryah to refer to, as a translation for Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, as opposed to Lord Adon. And we see that in Psalm 110 verse 1 in the Peshitta version of Psalm 110 verse 1. Okay, let's look at Luke chapter 3 verses 4 through 6. Here, Luke is quoting from Isaiah chapter 40 verse 3, but the Greek and the Latin Vulgate versions of Luke quote this verse as it appears in the Greek Septuagint with the phrase, "make his paths straight," while the Masoretic text actually says, "make straight in the desert a highway for our Elohim." Here, our Hebrew text of Luke follows the Masoretic text, not the Septuagint. This is also, it is also in agreement with the Aramaic of the Old Syriac and the Peshitta against the Greek and Latin Vulgate in following the Masoretic text here. All right, let's look at one last passage, Luke chapter 10, verse 27. Here, Luke is quoting, or Yeshua, Luke is quoting Yeshua, quoting the Shema, Deuteronomy 6:5. In the Greek, the Latin Vulgate, and even in the Aramaic, Old Syriac, and Peshitta, Luke has Yeshua quoting the Shema incorrectly here. All of these versions, the Greek, the Latin, and the Aramaic, the Syriac, both the Old Syriac and Peshitta Aramaic, have Yeshua quoting the Shema, saying, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind," with 4 elements. In the Shema, there are actually only 3 in Deuteronomy 6:5, but it quotes it with 4. Now, there's a very interesting reason that we end up with this additional item. How this 4th item ended up in our text of Luke is probably a subject for another day. It's probably it's really too complex to go into in this video. What's important is that our Hebrew version of Luke here follows the Hebrew text of Deuteronomy 6:5 and does not have the mistake that is found in all of the ancient versions of Luke. All right, so what we have here is a Hebrew manuscript of Luke as part of a Hebrew manuscript of the four Gospels, in a manuscript that says that it was hidden, that the text was hidden away in caves, and it was brought forth by Jews who had hidden their testimonies, and that it agrees in many places with the old Syriac Aramaic text that was lost in ancient times until it was rediscovered in the 19th century. It would not have been available to a Hebrew translator in the Middle Ages. So this very good evidence that this Hebrew version of Luke descends directly from the original Hebrew of Luke, which served as the basis for the old Syriac Aramaic version of Luke. That's the only way that this would be likely to occur, which makes this Hebrew manuscript of Luke especially important to our scripture restoration project. All right, again, I want to thank you all for those that have helped us out in the past, for your support, and please help us today if you possibly can. We need to raise $600 today. By the end of the day today, or our account's going to plunge in the negative and start a cascade of returned items and fees. We can't afford for that to happen. For those that don't know, my wife is chronically ill. She suffers chronic pain. She's disabled. I am her caretaker at home. And while doing that, I am doing this great work on the restoration of the Hebrew and Aramaic of the books of the so-called New Testament. You can donate by clicking on the donate link in the video description, or by sending donations by PayPal to donations@wnae.org. That's donations at wnae.org. Also, don't forget to like our video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell. Let us know what you think in the comments. Participate in the discussions in the comments, and share these videos on social media and email and private messages, etc. Until next time, everybody, shalom.